20 Curious Facts about the life and legacy of Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan, the 40th President of the United States, was born on February 6, 1911 in Tampico, Illinois. He attended Eureka College, where he majored in economics and sociology, and developed an interest in acting and sports. After graduating in 1932, Reagan pursued a career in radio before moving to Hollywood in 1937, where he became a successful actor. He married actress Jane Wyman in 1940, but the marriage ended in divorce in 1948. In 1952, he married Nancy Davis, an actress who would become his lifelong partner and confidant. Reagan's transition from acting to politics began in the 1950s when he became involved with the Screen Actors Guild, eventually serving as its president. His growing interest in political issues led him to join the Republican Party, and he was elected governor of California in 1966. Reagan's presidency from 1981 to 1989 was marked by significant achievements and controversies. This video explores the best and worst things that happened during Ronald Reagan's presidency, examining their impact and legacy. Let's begin with an uplifting note. Number 20. Reagan revitalized the American economy in his first year. Ronald Reagan is widely credited with revitalizing the American economy through his economic policies known as Reaganomics. His administration focused on reducing taxes, deregulating industries, and controlling inflation. The Economic Recovery Tax Act of 1981 cut taxes significantly, which, combined with the reduction in government spending, aimed to stimulate economic growth. These policies led to a period of sustained economic expansion and job creation, pulling the nation out of the stagflation of the 1970s. Number 19. Reaganomics brought a lot of economic inequality. While Reaganomics is often credited with revitalizing the American economy, in the long run, these policies also led to significant economic inequality. The tax cuts and deregulation policies disproportionately benefited the wealthy, while cuts to social programs negatively impacted the poor and middle class. The gap between the rich and the poor widened significantly during Reagan's presidency, laying the groundwork for ongoing debates about income inequality in the United States. Critics argue that the economic policies of the 1980s have had long-lasting effects on the socio-economic landscape of the country. Number 18. Reagan ended the Cold War. Reagan's foreign policy played a crucial role in ending the Cold War. His firm stance against the Soviet Union, epitomized by his famous demand, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall," at the Berlin Wall signaled a shift in international relations.
General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Reagan's Strategic Defense Initiative, SDI, also known as Star Wars, pressured the Soviet Union economically and technologically. His negotiations with Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev, resulting in the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces (INF) Treaty of 1987, significantly reduced the nuclear arsenals of both superpowers, paving the way for the eventual collapse of the Soviet Union. Number 17. Reagan's international policies nearly destroyed Central America. Reagan's aggressive foreign policy in Central America led to significant controversy and human rights abuses. The administration supported right-wing governments and paramilitary groups in countries like El Salvador and Guatemala, which were involved in brutal civil wars. These groups were often responsible for atrocities, including massacres of civilians, Reagan's support for these regimes was criticized for exacerbating violence and instability in the region. Number 16. Reagan made the USA military stronger. One of Reagan's top priorities was rebuilding and strengthening the U.S. military. He increased defense spending to modernize the armed forces, ensuring the U.S. maintained its military superiority. This buildup included advancements in technology and weaponry, which not only deterred potential adversaries but also instilled confidence among U.S. allies. Reagan's commitment to a robust defense policy played a pivotal role in the United States' ability to project power globally. Number 15. The Iran-Contra affair was the worst scandal of his tenure. One of the most significant scandals of the Reagan administration was the Iran-Contra affair. This covert operation involved the sale of arms to Iran, which was then under an arms embargo, in exchange for hostages held by Hezbollah in Lebanon. The proceeds from these sales were then funneled to support the Contras, a rebel group in Nicaragua fighting the Sandinista government. This operation violated several U.S. laws, including the Boland Amendment, which explicitly prohibited aid to the Contras. The scandal severely damaged the credibility of the Reagan administration and led to numerous investigations and indictments of key officials. Number 14. Reagan is responsible for the Tax Reform Act of 1986. The Tax Reform Act of 1986 was another landmark achievement of the Reagan administration. This legislation simplified the tax code, eliminated many tax shelters, and closed numerous loopholes. It reduced the number of tax brackets and lowered the top individual tax rate from 50% to 28%. These changes made the tax system more equitable and efficient, stimulating economic activity by allowing individuals and businesses to keep more of their earnings. Number 13. Reagan had to face the PATCO strike. In 1981, Reagan faced the Professional Air Traffic Controllers Organization, PATCO, strike, where air traffic controllers went on strike for better working conditions and pay. Reagan responded by firing over 11,000 controllers who refused to return to work and permanently banning them from federal service. This action was seen as a harsh stance against labor unions and had a chilling effect on labor movements in the United States. It marked a significant shift in the power dynamics between labor and management, leading to a decline in union strength. Number 12. Reagan promoted free market principles. Reagan was a staunch advocate of free market principles. His administration worked to reduce government intervention in the economy, believing that a free market would lead to innovation, efficiency, and economic growth. By deregulating industries such as telecommunications, transportation, and finance, Reagan fostered a competitive environment that benefited consumers and businesses alike. The airline and trucking industries in particular saw significant improvements in efficiency and service due to deregulation. Number 11. Reagan faced the savings and loan crisis. The savings and loan crisis of the late 1980s was one of the largest financial scandals in American history. Deregulation of the savings and loan industry during the Reagan administration led to risky investments and widespread fraud. When the industry collapsed, it resulted in a bailout that cost taxpayers over $160 billion. This crisis highlighted the dangers of insufficient regulation in the financial sector and had long-lasting effects on the U.S. economy. If you like our work, hit the notification bell so you get informed each time we upload a new video. Number 10. Reagan advanced space exploration. Reagan was a strong supporter of space exploration and innovation. His administration provided substantial funding for NASA, ensuring the continuation of the Space Shuttle program and the development of new space technologies. The launch of the Space Shuttle Challenger in 1983, despite its tragic end in 1986, represented a significant step forward in human spaceflight. Reagan's vision for space exploration helped lay the groundwork for future missions and technological advancements. Number 9. Reagan mismanaged the AIDS crisis. During the early years of the AIDS epidemic, the Reagan administration was widely criticized for its slow and inadequate response. Despite the growing number of cases and deaths, Reagan did not publicly acknowledge the crisis until 1985, 4 years into his presidency. This delay in action resulted in a lack of funding for research and prevention, contributing to the rapid spread of the disease. The administration's handling of the AIDS crisis remains a major blemish on Reagan's legacy, with many arguing that earlier intervention could have saved countless lives. Number 8. Reagan coined the war on drugs. Reagan took a strong stance on combating drug abuse and trafficking. His administration launched the War on Drugs, implementing stricter drug laws and increasing funding for drug enforcement agencies. The Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1986 established mandatory minimum sentences for drug offenses and allocated significant resources to drug prevention and treatment programs. While controversial, these efforts highlighted the need to address the growing problem of drug abuse in America. However, number 7. Reagan led a losing war against drugs. Reagan's war on drugs aimed to combat drug abuse and trafficking but had several negative consequences. The administration implemented strict drug laws and mandatory minimum sentences, leading to a dramatic increase in the U.S. prison population. This approach disproportionately affected minority communities and contributed to the rise of the mass incarceration crisis. Critics argue that the war on drugs focused too heavily on punitive measures rather than addressing the root causes of drug addiction, such as poverty, lack of education, and the visible impact the flow of drugs had on specific communities such as the Black and Latino population of the era. Number 6. Reagan bolstered American patriotism. Reagan's presidency was marked by a resurgence of American patriotism. His speeches and public appearances often emphasized the greatness of America and its unique role in the world. By celebrating American values and achievements, Reagan inspired a sense of national pride and unity. His ability to communicate with the American people earned him the nickname the Great Communicator. This renewed sense of patriotism had a lasting impact on the national psyche. Number 5. Reagan had a poor handling of the homelessness crisis. The homelessness crisis in the United States worsened during Reagan's presidency. Cuts to social programs, including affordable housing and mental health services, contributed to a significant increase in the homeless population. The administration's focus on reducing government spending and promoting self-reliance often came at the expense of the most vulnerable populations. This issue highlighted the broader social consequences of the administration's economic policies. Number 4. Reagan signed the Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986. The Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986 was a significant piece of legislation signed by Reagan. It aimed to address the issue of illegal immigration by providing a pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants who had been living in the U.S. since before 1982. The act also imposed penalties on employers who knowingly hired illegal immigrants and strengthened border security. This legislation was an important step in reforming the U.S. immigration system. Number 3. Reagan had to face the Beirut barracks bombing. In 1983, the Beirut barracks bombing resulted in the deaths of 241 American servicemen. This attack on the U.S. Marine barracks in Lebanon was one of the deadliest terrorist attacks against Americans prior to 9/11. The bombing raised questions about U.S. involvement in the Middle East and the effectiveness of Reagan's foreign policy. The administration's response to the attack, including the eventual withdrawal of U.S. forces from Lebanon, was seen as a shameful retreat and an admission of defeat while highlighting the complexities of military interventions in volatile regions. Number 2. Reagan's administration had a poor record on environmental policies. Reagan's administration was criticized for its environmental policies, which were seen as favoring business interests over environmental protection. He appointed officials like James Watt, who were known for their pro-development stances, to key environmental positions. The administration rolled back several regulations designed to protect the environment, leading to concerns about increased pollution and degradation of natural resources. Reagan's environmental legacy is often viewed as one that prioritized economic growth over sustainability. Number 1. Reagan was a staunch promoter of democracy worldwide. Reagan's foreign policy extended beyond the Cold War. He actively promoted democracy and human rights around the world. His administration supported anti-communist movements in countries such as Nicaragua, Grenada, and Afghanistan. By providing military and economic aid to these movements, Reagan aimed to counter the spread of communism and support the establishment of democratic governments. His efforts contributed to the global wave of democratization that followed the end of the Cold War. As an additional curiosity, we would like to highlight the fact that Ronald Reagan faced a serious assassination attempt on March 30th, 1981, just 69 days into his presidency. John Hinckley Jr. shot Reagan outside the Washington Hilton Hotel, wounding him and 3 others. Despite the critical nature of his injury, Reagan displayed remarkable resilience, quickly returning to his presidential duties. This attempt on his life marked a significant moment in his tenure in the White House, highlighting his courage and resolve. Reagan's survival and recovery reinforced his public image as a strong leader, further solidifying his legacy. After leaving office in 1989, Ronald Reagan retired to his home in California. He remained active in public life, giving speeches and writing his autobiography, An American Life. In 1994, Reagan was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, a condition he publicly disclosed in a heartfelt letter to the American people. Despite his declining health, he continued to advocate for his beliefs and support various causes. Reagan spent his final years at home with his beloved wife Nancy by his side. He passed away on June 5, 2004, at the age of 93. Reagan's legacy is complex, marked by significant achievements and controversies. His impact on American politics and global affairs remains a subject of study and debate, reflecting the enduring influence of his presidency. We are glad you have reached the end of the video. Please subscribe to the channel and leave suggestion about any topic of your choice in the comments. We'll be back real soon with 20 new curious facts about something else.